We are ready to start the introductory video. Okay. I'd like to call the November 7th, 2024 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission to order. Thank you all for being with us this evening. Begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to read the ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the code of ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which would have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before the board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on any matters voted on by the commissioners at our meeting this evening. Also want to announce that there's parking validation for anyone attending the meeting this evening. You can pick up a bus pass or parking garage pass from security on your way out. That is valid for today only. We come to the consent agenda. Commissioners, are there any questions about any items on the consent agenda? Can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda and to follow the remainder of the agenda as published, except we need to pull item 5 under new business? It's not ready to be taken up tonight.
Motion.
Second.
Before we vote, do any members of the public have any questions about any items on the consent agenda? Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, commissioners, we do have a need for a brief closed session. Mr. Euler, could you explain the purpose of the closed session?
To consider and give instructions regarding the handling of a lawsuit in Federal District Court, Western District of North Carolina. This is the City of Brevard et al., which Buncombe County is also a plaintiff, versus HCA Healthcare et al. There are a number of defendants. Case number 1:22 CV 114. There would be no formal action taken after the closed session. And the statutory authority is contained in General Statute 143.318.11A3.
Okay. And commissioners, is there a motion to go into closed session to hear from council on the this matter?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I expect this will probably take about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll be back into open session. Okay. So we now come to the public comment period. Has anyone signed up for public comment? Okay. Is anyone who is in the meeting this evening interested in making public comment? All right, very good. I don't know if that's ever happened before. Okay, so we come to presentations. The first item is an update on Hurricane Helene response and recovery processes. Yeah, I think Lillian Grovis is going to get us started.
Thank you. When Avril asked for us to provide an update on the storm response and recovery, we have a lot of assets that we have gotten through in the form of videos and photos. We had a number of folks from across the state and region who sent us staff to complement our existing communications and engagement staff. And so knowing that we have a lot of really compelling imagery, we took that and created a video for the update instead of a PowerPoint. So we will show you a 6.5-minute video here. I do want to add the caveat that this was all produced in-house by Nick, Ben, and myself, and so no PR agency or anything like that. And I also want to add that there's some of this that's kind of hard, right? We've been through a really tough time, and so for folks who may be watching online, I want to make sure that we are front-loading that with that information, because you'll see in the video, like, my voice gets pretty shaky, and I'm a little shaky right now thinking about some of the things that we experienced as a community. So I will ask Ben and Nick to go ahead and get that going.
Even before Hurricane Helene made landfall in Florida, the National Weather Service had warned of catastrophic flooding in western North Carolina, prompting Buncombe County to declare a state of emergency on Wednesday, September 25th.
Helene heading our way, sending torrential downpours, wind, and flooding tonight into Friday.
Many counties in our area have declared a state of emergency.
Helene made its way across North Carolina Thursday morning through the early afternoon. The North Carolina State Climate Office reported that its Mount Mitchell weather station recorded 24.41 inches of rainfall. The French Broad River crested at more than 1.5 feet higher than its previous high water mark set during the flood of 1916. By 5 a.m. Friday, September 27th, more than 15,000 residents were being told to evacuate to higher ground. Hundreds of swiftwater boat rescues were underway. More than 100,000 residents lost power, and only a few hours later, interstates I-40 and I-26 were closed, along with numerous secondary roads. On September 28th, President Biden approved a major disaster declaration for North Carolina, unlocking critical federal resources to aid in the recovery from the devastating impacts of Hurricane Helene. This declaration allowed the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, to begin assisting residents and businesses responding to the disaster. The shelter at the WNC Ag Center opened to community members escaping the floodwaters that wouldn't crest until that afternoon or recede for days. Although the rain dissipated, nearly 1,000 landslides blocked roads, destroyed infrastructure, and claimed lives. By Saturday, more than 5,500 911 calls were received, and 10 state and federal swiftwater rescue teams joined locals teams in rescue efforts alongside urban search and rescue teams. On Sunday, additional shelters were stood up at AV Tech to support the general population, along with those who had special medical needs. After the storm, more than 350 bridges had been damaged or destroyed, and while the county requested water ahead of the storm, those supplies were no longer accessible. By Monday, September 30th, the county's water distribution sites began operating, and the magnitude of damage to the water infrastructure was only beginning to be realized. To date, these sites have distributed more than 84,000 gallons of non-potable water, 595,000 gallons of potable water, and 206,000 meals ready to eat. Since before the storm, the county held community updates in English and Spanish to prepare and respond to the storm. With little access to phones, internet, or power after the storms, these updates became lifelines for the community, many of whom listened in over radios in their cars and even on ham radios, who streamed the county's updates live. School superintendents, municipal leadership, and community partners gave vital updates to connect community members to food, water, and shelter, while search and rescue teams shared all they were doing to find our friends, neighbors, and loved ones. The county redesigned its website to get the most important information to the community without overstressing bandwidth. The first community care station opened on October 9th in Swannanoa, offering showers, bathrooms, laundry, water, hot meals, and more to survivors of the storm. Through October, more than 13,800 survivors at multiple care stations across the county have taken advantage of showers, and more than 12,400 loads of laundry have been done. To help our community stay healthy, nurses have administered more than 1,700 vaccines. As the community begins to move from disaster response to recovery, more than 700 pallets of potable water were distributed to schools, and on October 28th, the first students made their way back to class with support from more than 250 school counselors from 53 other school districts. Like schools, child care centers can't operate without water. The county delivered more than 130 pallets, the equivalent of more than 262,000 12-ounce bottles of water to 61 child care facilities, helping give parents needed support to head back to work. Buncombe County employees also returned to work, though many had been reassigned, taking on different roles like staffing the One Buncombe call center to provide support in the recovery effort. With disaster assistance teams dispersed throughout the county, more than 49,000 Buncombe County households have been approved for FEMA individual assistance, and nearly $70 million has already been provided to survivors. FEMA has also approved more than $12 million in home repairs and rental assistance for 2,192 households. Buncombe County has come together to help, neighbors helping neighbors, clearing roadways, removing downed trees, and rebuilding damaged properties. Volunteers worked long hours to ensure people had access to supplies and resources like laundry, internet, showers, food, and water. State and federal agencies remain on the ground in Buncombe County, bringing bipartisan support to ensure that Buncombe County and the people who live here get relief and also long-term support for recovery. On November 1st, Buncombe County Commissioners approved $3.1 million in hurricane relief funding for housing and small businesses. The board also introduced disaster recovery consultant Tetra Tech, which has more than 25 years of disaster recovery experience. The Army Corps of Engineers is managing removal of nearly 10 million cubic yards of debris, and to date has already collected more than 50,000 cubic yards from Buncombe County roadways, communities, rivers, and streams. It's a marathon, not a sprint, is a phrase heard commonly around the Emergency Operations Center since the devastating impacts of Hurricane Helene have been realized. We know the effort will be ongoing, but we also know that we, as people who match our mountains, have the endurance and fortitude to come back stronger.
Right before I came up here, I got the update from our debris hauler that we have collected more than 135,000 cubic yards of debris to date. That figure, 50,000, was from last week. So that shows you the amount of progress from Friday to today. Any questions?
I don't think so.
Thank you. Really powerful. Thank you. Excuse me.
And Commissioners, right now, Hannah Vick from FEMA is also going to give us a quick update as well on the work they've been doing in our community.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the invitation to come here this evening. I very much appreciate it. My name is Hannah Vick, and I'm an Assistant Federal Coordinating Officer with FEMA. And my primary focus, my only focus, is on Buncombe County, the City of Asheville, and the other municipalities within the county. I've been on the ground for about 3 weeks now, and while I'm still learning, I've seen firsthand the spirit of community, the resilience, and the immense fortitude of the people here. The video that we just saw was so very, very powerful, and I'm honored to be a part of the team that's supporting your recovery. For this briefing, my intention is to just give you a big picture overview of FEMA support to the county and an update of our recovery programs. And then, of course, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Right now, FEMA has about 300 responders just in Buncombe County, and we've leased office space in the city to serve as a hub for FEMA activities across Western North Carolina. These responders are here to support one-on-one engagements with the county as well as the surrounding areas. And the team here, some of which are actually just located downstairs, can get additional support and expertise from the other FEMA offices that we've opened in the state for the overall hurricane recovery. As the operation continues, it's my job to ensure that our priorities are aligned with yours. I've been working with the county team on a daily basis to ensure that we're pushing forward on water, debris, housing, and long-term recovery planning. So to give you an overview of our efforts, starting with water, I'd like to just say at the top that supporting the restoration of potable water is a major, major priority. We've tasked the Army Corps of Engineers to support the interim water project at North Fork and the emergency work at Bee Tree, and we've authorized the funding to pay for all eligible costs. In addition to the water projects at these facilities, FEMA continues to support the state, the county, and the municipalities with the delivery of water to essential facilities, to the comfort care stations, and the pod sites. We've also embedded a liaison with the water department, which means that somebody from FEMA is on site each day to assist with coordination and serve as a point of contact to make connections and to solve problems. I know that you've been receiving so many updates on the overall water situation from the experts, so I won't spend any time here talking about details, but I just wanted to emphasize at the very top that potable water is our top priority, since we know that it's essential for the other elements of recovery to actually continue. On the debris front, as was just noted, over the past week, we've been working with the county to accelerate debris removal, especially from public rights-of-way throughout the county and your municipalities. We're part of the ongoing discussions with the Corps of Engineers and their contractor, just to make sure that we all stay aligned. And we are facilitating conversations with the Corps about other types of debris removal, including waterways, private property, and from commercial properties. The debris removal that's conducted by the Army Corps of Engineers is part of what we call direct federal assistance, which means that there will not be a cost to the county. In early October, the President approved the Governor's request for the federal government to reimburse 100% of all the costs for debris removal and emergency protective measures for 6 months. For the longer-term restoration of infrastructure and facilities, FEMA's Public Assistance Program will support the county's recovery through a reimbursement process on a cost-share basis. We have 2 public assistance program experts embedded with you at the county, and they're already tracking the various projects that will eventually be submitted for reimbursements. And really what that means is that they can build the relationships now. They also have a much better understanding of the unique situation here in the county. So as those projects are moving forward throughout the FEMA process, they have firsthand knowledge of what it is that is needed and how the projects are coming together. This one-on-one support is extraordinarily important to us because our goal is to maximize assistance not only for the public costs, but then of course also for families. Which leads me to housing and FEMA's individual assistance program. We are acutely aware that the priority around housing disaster survivors and through our various programs, we are working with households on a case-by-case basis. Our priority is to ensure that displaced families have a safe and sanitary place to stay. For our programs, the first step for anyone affected by this disaster is to apply for FEMA assistance, either online or by phone. And once the registration is in the system and deemed eligible for federal assistance, we can go about finding short-term or longer-term solutions. More than 50,000 households in the county have been approved for FEMA assistance, and we provided more than $73 million directly to families. This money is to help survivors take care of some serious needs, pay for a temporary place to live, make home repairs, and replace essential personal property. And as we complete home inspections, we can approve survivors for more money or programs based on their specific damages or their specific needs. So for example, we've approved more than 3,500 households just in this county for displacement assistance, which will help pay for things like temporary housing, lodging, and other needs, even if they're currently staying with family or friends. This is a one-time payment, which is on top of the $750 payment FEMA has provided for serious needs assistance. In addition, FEMA is directly paying for more than 1,600 people to stay in local hotels, and we know that staying in hotels is not the best option for some families. So we're working one-on-one with those households to identify rental resources or other longer-term housing options. So in addition to the hotels and the serious needs assistance and the displacement assistance, FEMA can also ask, or survivors can also ask FEMA for rental assistance money. We also help people with financial assistance for making repairs so that they can stay in their home or begin the process of rebuilding or buying another home. FEMA has approved about 2,400 Buncombe County households for home repair or replacement money and provided $13 million to those families. We also help survivors with money to replace things like personal property, paying for moving and storage costs, and other needs not covered by insurance. We know that oftentimes it's easiest to talk to somebody face to face about FEMA and about our assistance programs. And so that's why we've set up disaster recovery centers to provide that personalized assistance so that you can ask questions, concerns, or problems with any applications. We have one DRC currently at the King Creek Pool and one mobile DRC that moves between the Beatree Fire Substation in Swannanoa and the Buncombe County Sports Complex. We also have 12 disaster survivor assistance teams spread throughout the county. And all of this financial assistance and outreach support is meant to help families get back on their feet. We know that housing will continue to be a concern in the long term, even as we address the short-term and temporary needs right now. Which brings me to my last point. We recognize that economic recovery is a top priority here, especially understanding that this serves as an economic engine for Western North Carolina. By statute, FEMA is limited in what we can do directly for private businesses and entities. However, we are focused on the enabling functions that underpin economic recovery, such as rebuilding infrastructure, removing debris, making sure families and individuals have a place to stay, and restoring access to potable water and other types of essentials. These are key drivers, so we're working to match the county with the federal programs which have the authority and the expertise to help businesses directly. We've been meeting regularly with county staff to offer support in their recovery planning and ensure that FEMA remains aligned with the county's priorities. So finally, I'd just like to say that FEMA is very much one part of a large team of public, private, and nonprofit organizations all working to help the county through the recovery process. We know that it's going to take time, but we're committed to being here and working with you to navigate the FEMA programs and the larger recovery effort. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for all that information, and I'm just curious, can you give us a little bit more around the housing? Because we clearly know that's such a need. And so what are some of the options that you're looking at for housing within the communities?
Sure. So the most important thing, and especially that we've learned, FEMA working with families and individuals throughout the years, is that we know again and again, any family has a unique situation, and we have to work with them in a unique way. It is always a case-by-case identifying what the needs are for the particular family, and then how is it that we can provide resources to get them onto the road for recovery. And what that means, though, is that we know that there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to providing housing for displaced survivors. We offer a variety of different programs with the intention of matching up one of those programs, or maybe several of them, with the actual family. So when you call FEMA, the first thing that we want to do is make sure that you have somewhere safe and sanitary to stay. And so if you need a place to stay, or for example, if you're in a shelter, we're going to try to get you to a hotel or something that will meet your immediate needs. And then we're going to start looking at the longer term options. A hotel can be a longer term option while you figure out what your next steps will be. But then at that point in time, we're also going to start looking at the displacement assistance, which is like a cash grant that you can pay for a hotel, or you could pay for, using the transportation to your a relative's home, like that type of thing that will allow a person to make the decision on their own for what's best for them, finding a housing solution. We also offer the rental assistance, which is another cash grant that will allow a person to go out and find their own rental property and sign a lease that way. And then we also offer home repair or replacement with the intention that if a person just needs to repair their home, then they can stay there, and that is the longer term housing option. So after looking through all of those different options to see if that makes sense, then we also talk quite a bit about what we call our direct lease program with FEMA, where FEMA will contact landlords on behalf of a displaced survivor and enter into an agreement for the disaster survivor in order to get into a rental property. We'll also look at temporary units, either putting the temporary units on a piece of private property, possibly a currently established commercial property site, or in the future, possibly setting up a group site for temporary units. But those are many of the different types of housing assistance that we can offer.
So housing stock was a problem pre-storm. It's even more of a problem post-storm. Can you share more about what that temporary housing on private land, commercial land will look like for us, or what you envision that looking like for Buncombe County?
I will say that we are actively working that, especially with a couple of families right now, where it looks like that might be an option. And what that means is that if a home is significantly damaged, but there is room and utilities, if there's electricity and other types of essential services that are there on the private property, then we might be able to provide a temporary housing unit or a manufactured housing unit. We can actually come and install it on a on the personal property. At that point in time, the unit remains on the property. We continue to work with the family as they make usually repairs to their home. And then after a period of time, then we work with the family about removing the temporary housing unit from the private property. We're also looking at commercial property sites, which in many cases can be much easier to identify, since a commercial property site already has the pad, it already has a concrete block, the utilities are already there, and it might be in a location that is much more feasible for a family. So we might put a manufactured housing unit on an already established commercial pad. And then one of the options that we can look at is establishing a group site where we take a plot of land and then build out a temporary site for manufactured housing units, or these temporary housing units in a grouped way.
But just on that last point, how close do you think you are, or how far along is the thinking around whether to establish any sites that would have multiple units established, like a group site? Like, how far along is the thinking on that, about the need for that? And if you do think there's a need, the agency thinks there's a need to implement?
I would say right now, I don't have specifics about a timeline. However, I can tell you, especially over the last couple of weeks, we've been in many, many meetings, not only with the FEMA housing team, but also with the county on exploring these options. The county has provided us a couple of addresses and asked us to do some pre-assessments just to take a look to see if there's feasibility to some of these options. And we've done that. We want to be fully supportive and, of course, ready if we are asked to put together a group site. I will tell you, though, that in terms of speed and efficiency, putting a unit on somebody's personal property or finding a commercial site is usually a much smoother and much straightforward process. And of course, we want to get people into this longer term housing solutions just as quickly as possible. But we know that since every family is unique, and of course the the situation in Buncombe County is very unique. We want to make sure that all of the different options are on the table. So I can tell you that we continue to pursue all options lockstep with the county.
And maybe this is to the county manager. So the county doesn't currently have a position on whether like a group site is needed? Or do we?
We do have a position. And we
What
do
is our
believe-
position?
We do believe we will need a group site.
Okay.
And that's what Hannah said, that they've been out looking at the addresses that we have shared with them to start preparing that and seeing what would take, if it needs to be phase ones, environmentals, what it's going to need to take to get those sites ready. But we do have a position based on Commissioner Edwards' point. We were already at a deficit for
Mhm.
housing, so we know that we would need more housing.
And of what size? Like, have we identified a number that we think is needed in the question? I'm just trying to get a sense of it. The question is, yes, this needs to happen. The question is, where's it going to happen? Or is it more like we're still assessing whether there's a need for it, which seems like it's a very compelling.
Not whether
Need
there's a
for it,
need,
so-
but where can we put this?
Yeah.
That's where we are at this point. Where can this happen? We're looking at sites, as I've shared with you, in especially in Swananoa. We would love to keep people in the neighborhoods. To Hannah's point, the first thing we're looking at is if there's any property that homeowners currently have, that we can put a unit there on site. So that is, we're working through that now. We have, working with an inspection team to make sure that can happen. And secondly, how can we then move forward to the group sites that she's talking about? But it's not a if, it's a where at this point. What land do we have?
All right. Other questions, commissioners?
A concern I have, living here in the mountains, we know that we've got a short window before cold weather sets in. But from what I'm hearing, how long is this going to take? If we're looking at placing people in April or May,
It's going to be,
what are we planning for the winter?
it is going to be a while, Commissioner, and Hannah can speak more to this. But she mentioned that the first thing, we want to make sure that people have safe sanitary housing. To
Right.
date, we have over 1,500, I believe, people in hotels. So that we have placed people in hotels right now. We're working through, we have sites that people have property that they own that already have water and sewer on site. We're also working with those individuals. I think she mentioned over 400 people already has been approved for housing. We're working with them to see if we can put a unit on their property. And the last piece of that is the group homes we just talked through. So yes, sir, there's a path, but it is going to take a while to rebuild.
And what's going to happen come this summer when we're in tourist time? Are the hotels going to continue?
They're being paid the fair market rate, so their hotels are fully being used right now.
Just, I'm hearing you correctly. Your expectation is that on like a site that would have multiple units at one site, your expectation is that that's not forthcoming in the near future?
It will take time to prep that site because we do have to bring water and sewer to that site. So that is not happening within the next several months, but it is something that we have that we're working on.
There's no sites with water and sewer that this could be done?
I don't know if we have one handy right now.
I have to check. There are a number of considerations, and part of the meetings that we've been having with the housing, our housing team, and then with the county is really laying out all of the different considerations where we're looking at a group site, not utilities, but then also the environmental considerations, transportation. We also need to make sure that there's ingress, there's egress for safety reasons. Or there's just a whole host of things that we need to double check before moving forward. However, feel good about the coordination that's happening right now to get a jump start on what it is that we will need in the future.
Can you clarify some of those numbers for me? I just want
Yes,
to make
ma'am.
sure. So you're saying there's 1,500 people in hotels currently.
About 1,600, but it does fluctuate. I think that what we see, especially with individuals in hotels, is that the recovery process for some families is not linear, right? Like they might be staying with friends and family right now, and then in a week or two, they call us and say, I need a place to live. It's just not working out, and we'll put them into a hotel. And that might work for a little bit, and then they find a different housing solution. So it fluctuates, but about 1,600 in hotels right now in Buncombe County.
And then when you say 400 approved for housing, is that housing where they're going to have something temporary on their current property where they just lost their home? Or
I think there was about 400 the last time I checked the numbers. I'm not sure you have a new number, but. Linda, go
400
through
cent, yeah.
Ahead.
About 400 that we're actively assessing to see if the eligibility criteria works on the FEMA side, and then also looking at their property to see if that is an option.
Okay, where you would bring in the temporary housing on their property that you're talking about. Okay, and then, so who's, in these numbers, and who's not being accounted for still with the need for housing? There's additional, so there's people who are in the shelters.
But there's some properties we know that you probably could not put a house back on that property.
Okay. Okay, so so what, do we have those numbers is what I'm
I do
trying-
not.
Okay. Thank you.
And in terms of folks who are staying in, let's stay with the hotels for a minute.
Yeah.
How long will that support be provided? Like, when will that kind of support expire?
When we put individuals into hotels or families into hotels, we do that for 60 days for this disaster. And then as you get closer, well, FEMA continues to contact the family throughout that 60 days to question, are you getting what you need? Do you have any immediate essential needs? But then also, what is your next step? What is the plan for your next housing step? And we work with them on a case-by-case basis. As we get closer and closer to the 60-day mark, we will also be doing reach out to those families to ask them, do you have a place to go? Where would you like to go? What type of situation are you currently facing? And then we'll try to match, again, resources to the need.
Maybe just like, and I know every case is different, but right, just say for like a common situation, that let's say there's a individual or a family that's in a hotel, they're getting close to the end of the 60 days. Let's assume they've lost their home, right? There's been so many homes that have been completely destroyed or are not livable and can't be repaired. What kind of support are they eligible for once like the ability to stay if they're in a hotel room, so the 60 days is up?
Yeah.
They're going to not be able to continue that. What kind of support is available for them?
So at the end of 60 days, we would first see if we could extend the hotel. So some individuals might say, I am waiting on insurance. And insurance has, assured me that this is coming either for the repair or replacement of the home. And they might say something like, I just need another 30 days, or I need another 14 days, and we'll work with them that way. We'll also be looking at the displacement assistance that I mentioned before, and that's the money that can be used for another hotel stay. Perhaps they would like to go someplace else and stay in a hotel, or stay someplace that costs money to get to. We'll provide that assistance. And then we can also provide repair or replacement funding for their damaged home. We send out an inspector, take a look at the damaged home, and then provide them with a cash grant, essentially. And then we also look at rental assistance, and that's key. I will say that we do recognize that here, the higher cost of rental units, we've been doing our own analysis, and so this last week, FEMA approved paying survivors double the rate of the HUD fair market rent. And that's a really great step forward for increasing the number of individuals who will take advantage of our rental assistance program. So that's money directly in the hands of families, and they can go out and find a rental resource in the location that they choose.
Commissioners, other questions? Okay. Thank you for being here this evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Commissioners, before we move on, I do want to say a big thank you to the staff that put the video together. I think it was a very impactful video for us.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the Mountain Community Capital Fund update and operating agreement. And E.B. Oderstall is here to help us out. Thanks for being here.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Do have a presentation. Hey, Nick? Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay, great. Good evening. Thank you for your time tonight. I will be providing a quick update on the Mountain Community Capital Fund, providing some high-level details about the operating agreement and the changes that the city and county have agreed upon, and then the next steps that we'll be taking in order to put that operating agreement into place. For the overview, Mountain Community Capital Fund is a loan guarantee fund for small business loans in Asheville and Buncombe County. The fund was established in 2018, and it is a collaboration between local partners, including Mountain BizWorks, the City of Asheville, and Buncombe County. This fund is intended for business owners who don't have collateral, which can be a barrier to a business loan. Collateral could include the capital resources, or they might have a credit issue that is preventing them from being able to access a standard loan. Entrepreneurs of color and borrowers with low incomes are encouraged to apply to this program. Our typical loan size is expected to be between $10,000 to $70,000, with an average of just over $30,000. A note here is that the loans are not actually issued by the Mountain Community Capital Fund or local government partners. The loans are issued by our community development financial institutions, and then we back those as a guarantor for the fund. The loan term is approximately 5 to 7 years. The CDFIs perform all of the loan underwriting, administration, technical assistance, and reporting. And loan technical assistance is a part of each loan, making sure that the businesses have the support as they're moving forward and establishing their operations. For our performance since 2018, there have been 76 total loans that have been backed by Mountain Community Capital Fund with $2.9 million lent. These loans have facilitated 274 jobs to be created or maintained. 44 or 58% of the loans have been to Black businesses, 14 loans or 18% to Hispanic or Latina businesses, and 38 or 50% of the loans have been to woman-owned businesses. As you all may be aware, Mountain BizWorks has been an active partner in responding to Helene, and so tonight they asked that I provide a quick update about some of their efforts to maintain contact and provide services to those who have loans backed by Mountain Community Capital Fund. Mountain BizWorks is actively connecting with every client in their portfolio to determine the impact on existing businesses. They're determining the immediate need and evaluating if a temporary payment modification is appropriate in that instance. And where appropriate, Mountain BizWorks is following established procedures to modify and document payment adjustments. They are also focusing in their post-Helene recovery support on recovery loans, business grants, and resource navigation services. For the operating agreement updates, edits were made to reflect our current practices as a committee, the evergreening of the document by defining roles and removing references to specific organizations will help us move forward with making sure that the agreement stays active. There is a 5-year term of agreement with the option to renew. We also updated the allocation of losses to be based on funding sources, and the description of funding sources was moved into a separate agreement or a separate exhibit, which will make it much easier for the committee to potentially accept new funds. For the city's action on the agreement, they are following a ratification process to be signed by the city manager and then ratified by city council at a later date. For our next steps, our next regular meeting, November 19th, we'll be requesting authorization of the county manager to sign the updated agreement. And also for your awareness, Mountain Community Capital Fund will be seeking a new custodian for the funds by February of next year. Any questions?
Thanks for this update. And I'm just curious, whenever we're looking at do we assess how long the jobs are maintained? You mentioned the number of jobs created and maintained. Is that something we track and kind of look at that long-term success of the business?
That's a great question. It's not in the overview metrics that we receive, but I believe we would be able to look at the assessment of the data. Each loan, we do have a greater detail broken out. So I can follow up and see if I can find some additional information. I think it would also reflect the success rate of the loans and how long they remain in business, but I can follow up on that.
Okay, thank you.
How many of these loans are in default?
At the moment, we do track the progress of loans. If someone is defaulting on their payments, there's a 30-day window, 60-day window, 90-day window.
Right.
We just received the most recent, and I cannot recall whether or not there are any in those trackable periods at this time. However, this year, Mountain Community Capital Fund did have its first loans that it had to pay out on. So the loan defaulted and the Mountain Community Capital Fund followed up on the guarantee. There are 7 loans so far during the life of this program that we have paid out and part of the guarantee.
Thank you.
I was just curious. So I would appreciate an update on this. Does this update this evening have anything to do with our commission discussions about investing in business support at our last meeting? Or is this just sort of coincidental that this is on the meeting tonight?
This is just coincidental. It is related because our primary partner for the CDFI is Mountain BizWorks, and they've been doing a lot of the work that y'all have been hearing in the community about Helene response. And this is one of the related programs and tools that they use in order to be able to facilitate small business support. However, it's not directly related to the Helene relief program.
And the county's new investment of ARPA funds for that purpose.
Correct. Yes. And quick update on that. We do have the RFP out. It closes tomorrow, and we'll have a review committee next week, and then move forward to be ready to present on that during the regular meeting on November 19th.
Okay. Your presentation said that the city's following a ratification process on these operating agreement changes?
Correct.
Okay, and then the city manager and the city council is going to vote on those changes. Do we need to vote on those changes?
Yes, that's what I'll be bringing on November 19th as the next step. Today was a refresher on Mountain Community Capital Fund and an overview of the document, which we have the finalized changes, and I'll be able to share with y'all on that deeper level.
Thank you.
This would normally on briefing, and we moved it from briefing to tonight, so we can cancel briefing earlier.
So we will not have a briefing on the 19th? Or at least we don't know at this time that we will.
We don't know yet what's coming forward. Yeah.
All right, any other questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Next item is an update from the Development Finance Initiative on the Cox Avenue and Ferry Road developments.
Good evening. So I'm Matt Card with Community Development. We have Sarah Odio with DFI here. That's going to give a brief overview. I'll try to get the presentation pulled up for you, Sarah.
All right,
we go.
perfect. It is good to see you all again. You know, I've been tracking you all from a distance, and I was supposed to be there about a month ago to give you an update on this project. And I'll say that I've been impressed with your leadership and how quickly you all are moving through what's been staggering to watch. So hopefully I get to be here with DFI to help you all focus on the future, some projects you've already got going that are going to meet a lot of the extraordinary need that you all have, that you still already had, and that you're going to have even more of going forward. So the plan is just kind of review these projects and let's talk about what's next. Matt, if you could change the slide. A reminder on the first project, Ferry Road. The solicitation for master development partner was released in May of last year. This is a project that will include roughly 645 units, more than half of these affordable to low and moderate income households with both home ownership, rental, and conservation of over 72 acres. The next slide, please. The Cox Avenue solicitation went out in July. This is for a single development partner, and the goal here is for 200 units affordable to low and moderate income households in downtown Asheville. Next. And so the proposals and the responses were received in September of 2024. It might feel like a really long time ago, but it's not that long ago. And we've got the Ferry Road Mixed Income Community received 2 responses from development teams. The first team, in no particular order, is LMG, Lansing Melbourne Group, partnering with Volunteers of America and Habitat for Humanity of Asheville. The second group is Urban Atlantic, and they would be partnering with Mountain Housing Opportunities. On the Cox Avenue project. You received 9 responses from developers across the Southeast and the nation. And those range from Cohen Esri, Fitch Eric, Harmony Housing, Paces Foundation, SCG and NHE, Self-Help and Mountain Housing Opportunities, South Slope Developers, the Michaels Organization, and Woda Cooper. Next slide. So what's next? What do we do with all of these responses? We are working on conducting due diligence on the proposals we received. What that means is that we are looking very closely at the development plans, their feasibility, layout, financials, level of public investment. We're checking references. We are requesting any clarifying information from the development teams, and ultimately we'll interview select partners that meet the criteria for a successful proposal. Next. This selection process is all moving towards choosing a partner for both projects and entering into a memorandum of understanding with these partners. So the county staff will come to you and they're going to recommend a preferred partner for both projects. The board will then direct the manager to enter into negotiations for this MOU, and we go from there, right? An MOU is a non-binding agreement between the county and each development partner, but it's going to outline each party's requirements and responsibilities. So what are you going to expect of the developer in the period of negotiating a truly binding agreement, the development agreement, and what does the county need to do in that period of time as well? It's going to establish some very clear milestones for both the developer and the county that have to be reached before you can think about executing a development agreement. Both of you are going to want to do more work on either end. You do not necessarily need to expend funds immediately. So picking a partner does not mean that you are going to write a check tomorrow. That's not how it works, right? It means that you are starting to talk about what will be expected of each of you. And it gets the developer locked in and doing their work and really finalizing their side of things so that they can get, when you're ready to go, they can be ready to go. So that's really key here because, you know, right now I think with budget and everything sort of in flux, you can have a partner that's really waiting in the wings and has done their due diligence so that they're ready to work. Next slide. And so I'm gonna, well, I'll talk about the schedule, right, Matt? Okay. Schedule is that we're ready to go. I mean, I'll say that DFI has been, you know, chomping at the bit to share with you all what we're learning and what we have in these proposals. Next up will be for Cox Avenue first, right? The goal will be to move first on Cox Avenue and do a development proposal review with our team. And then scheduling interviews in January or February and opening it up to a public discussion then. And so with the goal of the board authorizing the manager to negotiate with a partner in February of 2025. This could change, right? I think especially in the moment that you all are in, flexibility is key. And I can assure you that every single one of these developers, we've been in touch with them and they understand exactly what's needed here. So everything will come with a healthy dose of flexibility. Next slide. And so for Ferry Road, the next steps here are a little bit slower. This is a much bigger project. And so staff is really emphasizing delaying this till July. I don't know if Tim is here or if the manager would like to speak to this. I'm going to hand over the ARPA discussion to you all.
Matt's here, so I'll let Matt speak to it first if you have anything you want to share.
Yeah, I thank you. I don't have anything really to share on ARPA, but yes, with Ferry Road, we will be delaying that until July. I don't know, Avril, if you have an update on the ARPA process.
Sure. On this ARPA process, commissioners, our recommendation from staff would be to take the money that we have earmarked for ARPA on this project and move it to Cox, which is moving much faster. And then we can start seeing units come out the ground on the Cox side before we can on the Ferry Road side. So our recommendation would be to transfer and reallocate the funding from from Ferry Road to Cox Avenue.
Anything else?
And that's all I've got. So any questions about the process? I think the last thing that I will say that's really important is that DFI's, we've got a 10-year contract with you all. If you need more time, if you want to take more time, if you want to move faster, we are ready to go at your pace. And we're a partner in the long run. So keep that in mind with any one of these decisions.
All right, thank you, Sarah. All right, commissioners, are there any questions? And do you want to go ahead and get the approval for the ARPA transfer tonight?
No, sir, this was on presentation for you
Okay,
for awareness.
Just
so-
informational.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
that's fine. All right, Sarah, thank you so much for your help. We know these are big, complicated, everything is difficult kind of projects. So appreciate you getting them to this point. We're excited about both of them. And so thanks for being with us this evening.
Of course, thank you.
Okay,
Have a good
bye-bye.
evening.
Okay, thanks, Matt. All right, next up, county manager's report.
No report. I was looking to see if Regina was here. There she is. So Regina, if you'll step up, I want to introduce our newest department head. She's no longer new. She started with Gina Herring, joined us on September 23rd. Pay attention to that date, that's September 23rd. She came to us from Florida, and this is our new Justice Services Director. And because she came from Florida, she jumped right into EOC and really helped us to negotiate and move and build our EOC because she had plenty of years of experience. But she'll be serving as the she came to us, she served as the Executive Director of the Criminal Justice Commission at Palm Beach County and she's ready to use her 20+ years of experience in her new role. She entered the criminal justice field because she always wanted to work in providing service, help, and advocacy to people who are often disenfranchised by the very system designed to help them. This, coupled with the belief that public service is vital in improving communities and the lives of individuals, that has set her off on a 20-year career. She entered the law enforcement field as a law enforcement officer, went on to garner more experience, including the roles of senior deputy clerk administrator, probation officer, housing specialist, community organizer, and executive leader managing systems reform initiatives. She has a Bachelor of Science degree in criminology from Florida State University and a master's degree in management. She says one goal in her new role will be to advance the work Buncombe County has already embarked on to reform its criminal justice system by using her skills in moving projects from concept to reality. So help me welcome Regina. She's been with us now for a couple of weeks, but
Okay, Regina, welcome. We're glad you're here. Welcome. Glad to have you on the team, Regina. All right.
she's been working in the EOC, so that's my report.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have no items in our old business, so new business. First item, consideration of a resolution temporarily waiving late penalties on occupancy tax filings starting October 20th, 2024. Jennifer Pike is here to share more information.
Thank you, Chairman Newman, members of the board. This resolution would automatically approve occupancy tax penalty waivers due to Helene for the sales months of September 2024 through December of 2024. There are a couple notes I'd like to also add as we walk through this. The occupancy tax penalty waiver process is comprised of two steps. The first step requires an approval by the Tourism Development Authority. The second step is the final approval of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. So that is where we are this evening. On October 30th, the Tourism Development Authority approved an automatic waiver for the sales months of September through December, and those due dates are October 20th through January 20th of 2025. So those waivers would be in effect until June 20th, 2025. There's a lot of months here, I know, so stop me if you need to. If the payment and the reporting is not complete by June 20th, 2025, those penalties would be reinstated. So I want to be sure there are no questions on that. So following your approval, the occupancy tax penalties will be automatically waived retroactively for the due date of October 20th, 2024 through the due date of January 20th, 2025, as long as the tax is reported and paid by June 20th of 2025. Can I answer any questions for you?
I will make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you so much.
All right, next is consideration of a budget amendment for the DWI Task Force. John Hudson will provide more information.
Good evening, Commissioners. This budget amendment accepts the DWI Task Force grant for fiscal year 2025, providing a grant of $75,082 to the county's $247,000 a match. This was budgeted with the annual budget ordinance. This will support 3 sworn officer salaries and related operating costs.
Motion to approve the budget amendment.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, John. Next is consideration of a budget amendment for Dogwood Health Trust grant. And Victoria Reichard is here to help us out with this item. Thanks for being here.
Hello, Commissioners.
Hey.
Thank you for having me. Victoria Reichard, the Behavioral Health Manager under HHS Public Health. As part of our work around our fatal overdose response and creating more culturally responsive treatment options, our equity group convened a group of BIPOC leaders in the recovery and healing space and created a proposal to establish a culturally relevant, inclusive healing space and approached Dogwood Health Trust for funding. So these dollars will support a local site, peer supports, and community health workers and programming for marginalized communities that are suffering or at risk from mental health and substance use disorders for the next 2 years. We'll be meeting with our partners in the coming weeks to plan for implementation that they are eager to begin. So we'd like you all to consider approving this budget amendment to accept the funds from Dogwood Health Trust. But if you have any questions, please let me know.
I move to approve the budget amendment as presented.
Second.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
I have a related question. Could I ask that? I saw a message on Tuesday about an increase in opioid-related overdoses that came. Can you speak specifically? I think it was in a certain area. Can you speak some to that?
Well, one piece I'd like to kind of touch on, recently, we've really been reconvening before the storm about recognizing when are potential spike alerts, how do we get that information out there? And so our community paramedics did share that they noticed an increase in that number, and we wanted to get that information out. So I don't have any more specific details, but again, we're really just wanting to urge our community even more now as people are struggling, right, with their own pain, their struggles, and trying to deal with their next steps, that there are harm reduction available. Naloxone, Narcan saves lives. Our health department at 40 Cox has those available along with several of our partners. So again, I don't have any specific details about that, but wanting to just make sure our community is attuned and that they are seeking out those resources.
Commissioner, I asked Lillian to come up because we were talking about this. We got this question from the media as well, so I know she has a little bit more details.
Thank you.
Yeah, we experienced 5 overdoses in 24 hours in the 28806 zip code, which is in the western part of town. And so when we have those 5 or more, it triggers the spike alert, which is what you saw, which is what we share out, not just to our community partners so that they know to start making sure that they have ample harm reduction supplies available, but also to people in the community so that they know they can access those supplies, like free test strips that we offer at the health department.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, and the last item is consideration of a budget amendment to accept grant award funding for the Safety and Justice Challenge Capstone Award. And John Hudson, I think, is going to also take this one.
So this budget amendment accepts a grant of $285,000 from the MacArthur Foundation for 2 attorney positions for increasing case processing efficiency and operational budget for increasing community engagement.
Motion to approve the budget amendment.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, John. All right, that concludes new business. We have an announcement. The next briefing and regular meeting of the board will be held on November 19th, 2024. And that concludes our business. Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.